My toxic entitled father mistreated me my entire childhood, as he constantly tried to force me to conform to a gender identity that I did not agree with. But now that I'm an adult, I decided to get some revenge by not only embarrassing him in front of the entire family, but also exposing him to the family that he has never been a good father to me. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I'll say it bluntly. My genetic father is a horrible human being. By this point, I've completely cut contact with him. However, this happened on the very last time I ever had to see him. My mother left him when I was about 13 years old. However, due to his lies and manipulation, the court system failed me, and I was still forced to see him. So the mistreatment he inflicted continued until I was 18 years old, and only got worse after the divorce because he knew that hurting me meant that it would hurt my mother. He is the absolute definition of trash, and my rather unique situation was only fuel on this dumpster fire. I won't go into too great of detail about his depravity, but I will simplify it and say that if you weren't a straight white man or a straight woman in a prairie dress, then you were going straight to Hades in his eyes and didn't deserve the time of day. And as for me, being born as both genders, it was a living nightmare. Now, having both genders basically means I have incompatible traits from both sides, and I actually didn't even find this out until I was almost an adult. However, I had a lot of health problems because of it, and due to looking highly androgynous growing up, I was called a freak. At birth, I was signed off as a girl, and when I began having some unique changes with puberty, it was drilled into me that I was basically just an ugly woman who didn't deserve anything because I didn't meet my father's standards. The discussion about my gender and who I am is a very long story. However, as an adult, I made the choice for both my physical and mental health to become fully male. Due to my father, there were only two people in my entire family who knew about this: my mother and my grandmother on my father's side. My mother's an amazing person and was extremely happy for me, and my grandmother was the sweetest woman you'd ever meet. Picture the stereotypical grandma who bakes cookies in children's books, and that honestly was her. The woman would give her last penny just to make sure you felt happy and safe. She was delighted to hear that I was starting to find who I was. My grandfather passed away shortly after I was born. However, my grandmother started dating again many years later, and when I was 18, I got an invitation to her wedding. She was in her 70s and acting like a teenager with her new fiance, and it was amazing to see her so happy. And of course, I wanted to go, but there was just one problem. My father would also be there too. At this point, I was already on hormone therapy for my treatments. I had facial hair, a flat chest. I didn't even look like my old self anymore, and I didn't want to think of the nightmare that would rain down from my father seeing me like this. But then I stopped myself in that moment, and I thought about it a little bit more. And after a bit of contemplating, I figured this would be perfect. He had always lied to family about what happened, painting himself as this loving father. So what kind of perfect dad wouldn't be happy for their son, right? Well, out of absolute spite, I went to a thrift store, got myself a classy black and purple gown, got some makeup, a pair of heels, and went to the wedding in full drag. My mother questioned as to why I was dressing up like a woman for this instead of just grabbing my suit, and when I told her what I was going to do, she broke out into full belly laughter and began insisting on helping me get ready to go. The wedding was lovely, everyone was smiling, and my grandmother was glowing the entire time, and I actually didn't see my father for the bulk of the reception. We had a big family, so I wasn't really surprised. However, at the end, as everyone was talking and getting cake, that's when my father spotted me. By this point, most of the family didn't even recognize me. However, when I was standing next to my mother, my father must have put the pieces together and started walking over. I then told my mother to go and be with my grandmother, and I was now left alone with my awful father in a crowd of people. He came right up to me and asked me what I was doing, and I just shrugged and continued people watching. He then leaned against the wall with me, and just as I expected, he began lecturing me. He pointed to my grandmother and now step-grandfather, and he said, "You see that? Make sure you get yourself a good man like that. Someone who makes enough to support you so you can stay home." I then looked over at him, and in my now deep voice, I said to him very simply, "Yeah, that would be great if I didn't have a girlfriend." Now, I wish I had a camera right at that moment just to capture the image of his eyes growing wide as he choked on his own words, and for the first time ever, he was left speechless. I could see him getting angry and trying hard to contain it, but I didn't care. I just casually waved over my grandmother. She came over smiling, and for the first time, I spoke openly with her in front of my father, telling her about my girlfriend and my journey into becoming a man. She was thrilled for me having a girlfriend, giving me a huge hug and telling me to invite her so that she could celebrate with everybody. And so that's exactly what I did. Now my father remained speechless, just staring at me as his face turned red, not daring to say a single thing in front of his own mother and their entire family. This was the one time that he was forced to be a decent human being to his child. child because he was surrounded by everyone he had lied to, and he was stuck between the lie and the man he really was. After a while of him just stewing in his very clear anger, he turned around and left without a single word, walking out on his own mother's wedding. My grandmother had me and my mother sit with her and her now husband at a table, and we all laughed and ate, enjoying our time together and making memories without him. My step-grandfather asked why my father left so suddenly and asked if everything was all right, and when I told him what happened, he looked at me with a sigh and said, "This is supposed to be a joining of families together. If he doesn't want to be part of that family, then so be it." And with all things considered, I honestly couldn't agree more. Okay, I love everything about this. This is like the perfect way of putting this guy in his place. You not only showed that this guy has no hold over your life, but he also can no longer lie about him being a good father to you, because he absolutely mistreated you, and I'm so sorry that you dealt with that. But also, I'm so glad that you have supportive family members who love you for exactly how you are, and the fact that you were finally able to put this guy in his place, especially in front of his family, in my opinion, was something this guy absolutely deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by calling someone the wrong name for several years at my job as a hostess. And now, after all these years later, I'm finally corrected and I feel like a complete idiot. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. In 2019, I worked as a hostess at a restaurant. Now, I actually applied to be a fry cook, but they recently had their only hostess quit and decided my 20-year-old lady self would be better as a host. They were kind of misogynistic like that and never really hired women to be fry cooks anyways, but I accepted the hostess role because social anxiety or not, I needed the money. This restaurant was also really popular as a takeout spot though, and as a hostess, one of my main duties was handling phone orders and walk-in to-go orders. Now, we had a lunch special that was a really good deal, so good that some people came in multiple times a week to order it to go. We took down names for takeout orders instead of giving numbers, so I really got to remember some names, and John was one of these regulars. He was older than me, probably mid-30s, and always looked kind of sad and nervous, but he was cute to me and I remember him well. One time, he came in a couple of hours after the lunch special was over, and like I said, the guy always seemed skittish and sad in the first place. Now, he seemed disappointed but was understanding and willing to order it at full price. But I felt bad, and I told him this one time only I could give him 10% off because I wanted to cheer him up. Now, it's still not as good of a deal as the lunch special, but it was something. He then actually smiled, thanked me, and looked happy for once. He hardly ever missed the lunch special after that, and thankfully when he did, he didn't expect the discount. Whenever he came in, I would always start typing his name and punching in his order, and just waiting to confirm that he wanted the usual before sending it to the kitchen and taking his payment. When it came out, I would call "Order for John," and he would come and grab it and thank me smiling. COVID happened and we didn't see a lot of our regulars like we used to. We were takeout only at that point, but even some of our takeout regulars weren't going out like that. And with everybody wearing a mask, it was harder to recognize regulars. But even then, I still tried. I kept working, but then I moved away for a while and I met a guy. And after a few months, I ended up moving back and I brought the guy with me. When I came back to my restaurant, I was unsure of my knowledge of the regulars. It had been too long, and plus I was in love now, so it kind of clouded my brain. So when I saw people that I had probably seen 100 times before, I still asked them to confirm everything. That is, except for John. I kept pre-typing everything in for him and continuing my process the same as before, and he would still smile at me as I passed the order over after calling out "Order for John." I felt like maybe I hadn't completely lost my knack since I still remember John. Now, I stayed at that restaurant long enough to where eventually they made me a manager. I was in the kitchen 90% of the time actually doing stuff like working the fryer, which is something I applied for all those years ago. One day we were short a hostess and I, as the manager, had to fill in. I was feeling especially self-conscious, doubting myself as I wasn't front of house as often as I was before. So when he came in, I did my usual and I started pre-typing everything. He came to the host stand smiling. He mentioned not seeing me in a while, and after I explained, he congratulated me on the promotion, saying that I deserved it. So I thanked him, I read back his regular order, and I asked to confirm by saying, "And it's for John, right?" Well, he was still smiling when he said to me, "Actually, my name is Chris, but I know sometimes I look like John." And it's like, what in the world is going on? I've been calling him the wrong name for years. Who is John? He knows John? Was he trolling me the entire time? I 100% knew it was the same guy I'd been calling John for years. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. Thankfully, though, I moved away shortly afterwards. And it's for several reasons, not just because I was terribly embarrassed. And thankfully, I never saw this guy ever again, because this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Oh my gosh, I would die from embarrassment. There's no way I would ever live that down. Thank God you moved away. Like seriously, that is so embarrassing. But honestly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for getting someone's name wrong. This guy introduced himself as John all those years ago, and now he's trying to be like, actually my name's Chris. And it's like, no, it's not John, your name's John, don't lie to me. And sure, this is super embarrassing, but also it's incredibly funny. Am I the jerk for offering to get my sister groceries from Dollar Tree instead of outright giving her cash? Because right now she's saying she would rather go hungry than eat from Dollar Tree. And at this point, I'm not sure if I offended her or if I was in the right. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister is broke and has no groceries. And this is also all according to her. I have not personally seen her kitchen, so I have no idea. And right now, she's asking me for $40 that she can borrow. And by the way, she never pays anyone back for anything. And she wants that money so she can get some groceries. I told her I'm really strapped for cash right now myself, as I just had to pay rent, the bills, and take my dog to the emergency vet, which in itself costs about $487. And I don't get paid again until next week. As a side note, she does not work due to severe health issues. Her husband does work, but doesn't make that much, and yet somehow makes too much money to qualify for food stamps. So what I told my sister was that I could go to Dollar Tree and get some stuff to help them get by until he gets paid. Well, she got really upset and offended. She then said to me, no thanks, I'm good. I then told her I watch a lady on TikTok who makes really good looking stuff with Dollar Tree items, but she still said no, especially because their meat looks nasty and her main meal that she eats daily is meatloaf, which I really can't afford to get right now because where we live, ground beef is so expensive. At this point, I told her, well, beggars can't be choosers. Those are her options. It's either that or go hungry. She said she would rather go hungry, and then she hung up on me. So seriously, am I the jerk for offering to get my sister groceries from the Dollar Tree? I feel like I might be the jerk here because yes, I could have given her the $40, but then I would not be 100% certain that would actually go towards groceries. And I've learned the hard way to never give her cash. But now I feel like a jerk and a bad sister. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't think you're the jerk because seriously, what you're offering her is some kind of like assistance to get by. And I don't blame you for not giving her cash. If she really is strapped for like groceries, then buying her groceries directly really would be a good solution. So no, you're clearly not the jerk here because it sounds like your sister is absolutely not trustworthy. My manager made me cry today at my restaurant job as she literally embarrassed me in front of the entire staff. And now I honestly feel so stuck and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I really need to vent right now. I don't work as often at this restaurant, but just on Friday nights and Saturday nights. Now I had a full section and we were at the dinner rush. I have been serving in this restaurant for about 7 months and it was my first restaurant job, so I'm thankful they made me a server with no experience. I did mess up a lot in the beginning, but I have gotten better. One of my tables ordered their sandwich with no cheese, and we had a food runner, but I also got very busy with serving drinks, and I was not at the kitchen for about 10 minutes. One of the runners took the no cheese sandwich to the wrong table, and I didn't notice. In fact, I went to ask if everything was fine, and they said yes. So then, when I served my other table and brought the sandwich, I didn't see that it had cheese. I went to ask for another sandwich on the fly, but I then made a fatal error to go to the kitchen and see if it was done, and made a slight comment how my table looked a bit upset. My manager then heard me saying this and went ballistic, saying this happened because I was not in the kitchen. I decided to serve my sandwich, and it was around that time where they were low on water and got on me for not refilling their water fast enough. She found everything that I could possibly be doing wrong and yelled at me for it, telling me my section was too big to handle, even though my full section was happy and drinks were always filled. Now, this isn't the first time I've gotten yelled at by this manager, who by the way is the head manager, and when she does this, I just zone out. I mean, my face just goes blank. She yelled at me in front of everyone. It was so degrading, and other servers were around just completely all quiet. 2 other servers told me that it was not fair how she talked to me, and I eventually broke down in front of them. It happens when I'm mad, and I was having what I felt like was a panic attack because I was still in a rush and I had no time to cry. The no cheese table probably saw my eyes being extremely red, but I was mad. I was humiliated and I felt so powerless. When I then tried to talk to this manager, she just yells and never listens to any reason. And on top of that, she wants to always be right and say to me how she's running a business here. I understand that I'm not the best server, and sure, I made many mistakes before, but she is emotional, degrading, and then she acts like things are okay after that, calling me sweet cheeks and all this other stuff. I understand restaurant work is stressful and we yell, but I really feel like her punching bag, mostly because I don't talk back, and I'm more of the quiet one, still not fully out of her shell type. I've been told that she does this to every server that still works there, and she stops once you stand up to her, and I just need to tell her her I cannot be treated like that in front of people. It doesn't help anyone to be like that. She made me cry and one of our hostess cry. Thank God I had eye drops in my bag because my eyes were blazing. She's the #1 reason I want to quit, but the food prices here are high enough where the tip out is really good. I'm still not the best server, but I have improved so much, and I have become better with prioritizing, but she still makes me feel like I did in my first month, and right now with all things considered, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can. You need to stand up for yourself. You do not deserve to be treated this way. You cannot allow this lady to walk all over you like this, because trust me, it will happen every single day if you let it. There will be no compromise in her head. She will literally see you as a punching bag and that's it. And trust me, this is not gonna get easier before it gets better. She won't care if you work hard and you suddenly like improving your performance. She will always find a reason to put you down. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would go straight up to her the next time she tries that, making sure I'm in front of the entire staff and tell her outright that she's never talking to me like that again. She needs to be respectful just as much as you've been respectful to her. You are doing a good job and she needs to recognize that. And honestly, who cares if she fires you or not? This lady cannot talk to you like that and you do not deserve that. So hopefully you can grow the courage to get this taken care of, or if anything, just find another job, because that manager sounds like an absolute toxic nightmare. Am I the jerk for accidentally catching my brother's girlfriend in a lie, as I exposed the fact that she wasn't actually a lawyer? Because right now the entire family is pissed off at me, and I now am not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 19-year-old female, and I have a brother who's 24 who I will call Liam for the sake of the story. Earlier this year, he started dating a girl that he met at his climbing class that I will call Emma. Emma is 26 years old, and they've been together for 4 months, and this weekend he decided to introduce her to us. They arrived yesterday and are staying until tonight. She is a really nice person, and we get along well. Then, at one point, my dad asked her what she did in life, and she said that she was a lawyer. Now, I was super interested because I'm currently studying law, and have wanted to be a lawyer since I was about 10 years old, so I was very excited to ask her questions about it. I asked about what cases she had, how she studied to become a lawyer, and what her days looked like, and many more things. Now, I might have been a little over-enthusiastic and annoying, but I didn't realize it at the time, and I was just excited to get to ask someone questions about my dream job. But at some point, she said something that seemed incoherent to me. The details might be long and boring, but basically, she just said something that isn't technically possible. So I was curious and a bit confused, and I asked her how that was possible, because I just thought she's the professional, so she must know better than me. But as she tried to explain it, she just said more incoherent and impossible things. It was kind of like someone quoting things from Grey's Anatomy to doctors, if you see what I mean. So I asked more about it to understand, and that's when she admitted that she wasn't actually a lawyer and she worked at a bookstore. She told us that she was very sorry for lying, and then left the table, and my brother followed after her. Well, my parents then kind of scolded me for being so intrusive, and when my brother came back, he was a bit angry. He started telling me that I was wrong for interrogating her, and that I made her uncomfortable, and that she had lied because she was embarrassed about her job, and I just made her more embarrassed. And now he hasn't been talking to me ever since then, and neither has Emma. Now, I'm not sure I'm in the wrong here, but they all seem to think so. I get that me asking questions was annoying, and maybe a bit too much, but I truly didn't have any bad intentions. I was just excited to be able to talk about it with someone. And also, I don't understand how everyone is so okay with the fact that she lied to my brother for 4 months, and then she also lied to us. I get being embarrassed, but I don't know if it's still a bit weird to me. But I never meant to make her uncomfortable, and I genuinely liked her. I don't see how I'm in the wrong, but maybe I just can't see it. So please, I really need to know, am I the jerk for calling her out on not being a lawyer? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is so weird. You have to be a special kind of stupid to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I'm a lawyer. Like, did she not think she was gonna have some kind of questioning about her career? Because that is not a degree or some kind of profession you just walk into. It takes a long time to become one, and you definitely need to know your stuff. So if anything, the original poster is doing their brother a favor. Who would want to date someone who lies in this manner, and so casually at that? No one cares that you work in a bookstore or anything like that. Like, seriously, just be honest about what you do. Because lying like that, in my opinion, is a huge red flag. And the fact that you expose that, in my opinion, is doing your brother a huge favor. 2 entitled parents do nothing to shut up their stupid kids as I'm trying to watch Wicked in the movie theater. Because as a result, they were screaming and making noise, as well as running up and down the aisle the entire time. And I'm honestly still pissed off about this experience. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I was really excited to see Wicked, but there were these 2 awful parents who let their kids talk all through the first half of it. And they were not just talking, but literally screaming. One little girl girl kept saying, "What's that?" every 5 seconds. Now, I'm not totally sure how many kids there were, but I think there were 2 or 3 of them. Now, I was at the back and there were some empty seats at the front. I went there thinking it would help, but seeing as they were in the middle, it really didn't matter. At the halfway mark, I found a staff member and I asked them to tell the parents to quiet their kids. The kids shut up with their vocal cords, but one boy kept running up and down the aisle, which then caused noise and distracted me because I was right next to the aisle. I felt bad for the kids because they were clearly bored out of their mind. I'm not saying that kids can't like Wicked, but it's not made for kids. The most frustrating thing was the lobby outside was empty, and the kids could have run up and down to their heart's content, but the parents just had to not miss anything and instead ruined it for everyone else. So if you have to see Wicked, get a babysitter, and if you can't get one, then keep your kids quiet. Give them some snacks or an iPad, I don't know. Just make sure you're not being antisocial to everyone around you. Man, this really pisses me off because theater etiquette is so gone these days. People just don't care about anyone else, and when they go to the theater, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna make noise and do whatever I want." Especially when it comes to a musical. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to hear you screeching at the top of your lungs. I didn't come here to listen to you screech along to the musical. I came to watch them do it because obviously the people on screen are way better than all of us. So yeah, this whole scenario just pisses me off, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.